G'day fans and welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Talk and Stuff. And this one will be an exciting episode because we're talking about a movie most people haven't even seen and probably aren't going to see. Even Aaron hasn't seen it and we're supposed to be reviewing it tonight. It is sort of a bit chilled, a bit laid back, but a bit like the weather now starting to warm up and is getting very, very exciting. What do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
It's been a fantastic day. I had half the day talking toys and Doctor Who rumours and all of this, and then the other half of the day on the phone to the tax department on hold half of the time trying to work out shop taxes. So, yeah, well, great day.
What can I say? Absolute party time. All these people are joining us. I don't even know why. Maybe because when the weather's warmer, people stay inside instead of going outside. We are going to be talking about some very interesting things. Like a lot of shows that we put together, some of them just get shoved together at the last minute. And there's a couple of things that have popped up literally in the last 24 hours, not even that, in the last 18 hours. And I guess I should kick it off with this. Guess what, Mr. Aaron? You wouldn't believe whose mug is now on TV. Yes, all SBS On Demand. The Dags is back. How exciting is this, dude?
I was actually quite disappointed because it was on SBS. I thought you'd be getting all your clothes off, but you didn't.
Oh, I tell you what, absolutely unbelievable. So, for those who are interested, this is a documentary that was most of this was filmed back in 2014. It got released in America on DVD a couple of years ago during the pandemic, and it's just been released on SBS On Demand, and that occurred midnight tonight, right? So unbelievable. And I mean, I had to sit up and have a bit of a watch and see how it all went and put the word out to everybody. And of course, Michael, the guy who made the film, didn't even know himself when it was coming out. He knew it was happening, but didn't know when. So I had to let him know. But unbelievable. I was loving the stunned mullet look. Yeah, that's definitely me. I don't know why. Now, I sort of screwed my picture up a bit here. I don't know why they picked this one as the, what do you call it, the thumbnail. I thought,
that's
how freaking boring is that?
That is actually the best picture of you ever, I'm sorry to say. They should have called it Dags On Demand, shouldn't they? That would have been a much catchier. Instead of Batman and Me, Dags On Demand.
Oh, I tell you what. I mean, I agree with Christy. It is the stun mullet look. I mean, the thing goes for like an hour and a half, and that's the image they decided to use. Go figure that. Was it Dags the mug? Yeah, that's definitely me. So, but the good thing is, because people have been asking about this damn thing for a few years now, at least it's out there. It's been there for 2 years. So for those who are thinking, oh my God, I've got to get a screening in every single day, you'll be doing it for 2 days. So that'll keep you going for a while. So what do you reckon, dude? When's someone going to make a documentary about you?
Well, maybe they have, but like I said, it's on the naughty channels that no one here subscribes to.
No, it's the OnlyFans page. That's exactly right.
Not the toy documentaries. The ones,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, wrong subject.
Move along. Anyway, so Batman and Me is out. If you haven't seen it, it's an hour and a half of your life you're not getting back. But yes, but the thing is, as it's very important, and this actually, I'm trying to be serious even though I'm laughing. I didn't make it. So it's not like I put the camera on myself and said, hey, guys, look how good I am. Someone else actually did produce the film and release it. I just have to be the subject matter. So,
do you know what would have been really funny? If they had trolled social media and found a picture of you like in a Star Trek uniform just to put the daggiest, nerdiest picture they could find up as the thumbnail.
Yep, they exist. I did actually have a Star Trek costume back in the 1980s. So there you go. As Russell said, probably the nerdiest shot they could find. Yeah, it was just, it's not, I mean, I personally wouldn't watch it looking at that. I'm going, what the hell? You want to see some Batman stuff, guys? But anyway, not my problem. What?
I have a trivia question for you. Who's the longest running member going to Star Trek meetings in Victoria?
Let me think about that for a second. I wonder if it could be, I'll narrow the field down to me, and me.
When are you going to do the Star Trek documentary?
Oh, I'll tell you what, imagine that. Someone else actually wanted to do, an Austrek member wanted to do a documentary regarding the club when it turned 40 years old X amount of years ago, and it kind of never went anywhere. But yeah, that would be a big job, that's for sure. So,
well, I think MPS should do one. He'd be good at it. Colin and MPS working together.
Mate, what can I say? Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, that's Batman and Me. Yeah, done, dusted. Watch it at your peril. Now, I just found out about this today, funnily enough, speaking of Star Trek. How good is this? I didn't know this, but there's apparently a Star Trek set tour and museum and exhibition thing. This is in America. It's not here. And I thought, this is actually kind of groovy. Now, I mean, I thought this was something a little bit different, a little bit interesting. And most of the focus for this thing. It's in New York for those who happen to be heading over there. It's all primarily based on the original series, which I was really surprised to see, actually. I thought, and I'm saying good on them too. I think it's absolutely fantastic they've done that. But with so
Yeah.
much Star Trek out there, I am surprised they've just focused primarily on the original series, even though there's a Wrath of Khan poster up there. But I know you haven't seen these before, but what do you reckon, dude?
I have seen these before. I was impressed as well that they did it with just the original series. I think it's one of those things where the original series is really iconic, and there is enough fans of that. And let's face it, with the new series they've produced after the last 5 or 6 years and the movies, I guess they've been going a decade now, it's really splintered fandom. But I think just about everyone agrees they love the original Star Trek.
Speaking of which, Russell, I completely forgot about this. Yes, there was an Austrek documentary done back in 1991 when the club turned 15. And the funny thing about that particular documentary, of all the people who appeared in it, right? I'll give you one guess as to who's the only one who's still around after all that time in the club.
Colin?
Yeah, I wonder if,
Is it Colin?
no, I don't think so, dude.
No? Not Colin?
No. I mean, to be fair, Jeff Alshorn has returned after like a 20, 30-year absence, which is good. But yes, there was that documentary made back in 91. But I was looking at this, and I don't know where all the material came from, but clearly, I don't know if they've borrowed it, bought it, even stolen it. But I think it's really groovy. They're focused on a lot of the merchandise for the original series. And I've got to say, if you're into Star Trek, this would be one spectacular place to check out.
Yeah, I love, do you know, I love going on holiday and going to other toy shops. Like, it's like my home away from home, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's very groovy because there would be a lot of Star Trek fans. You do wonder if there'd be a lot of fans who are like into the new series, like even the really brand new stuff, who'd be going, "Wait, I've never seen any of this. This is like really, really out there." But of course, this was effectively the internet for Trek fans for for decades before the real internet came into play. But there'd have to be a fair whack of value in some of these items, dude. What do you think?
Absolutely. Looking at that, they've got the primo prime condition items too. A lot of that old stuff really turns up beaten up now. So probably they must have approached fans to acquire that. Even if you go on eBay and try and buy it yourself now, you're looking for ages and not finding anything. So it would be a fascinating place to visit if you're into Star Trek, if you're into collectibles, or if you want to pick up a yellow skivvy.
Mate, can't say no to that. Russell said, I think the reason why original series based on that, a couple of guys built full-scale sets for the Trek fan films. This was almost like 20 years ago, and they based their museums and exhibitions around them. I've only got a couple of pictures of it, but yeah, they have actually like built the sets that appeared in the original series, and there's actually a few of them. This is, I thought, was one of the bigger ones for the sick bay, which I thought really good. Now, they look good in the photos. In real life, I don't know, they could be like just absolute plywood, but I got to say that if you're into the original series, you'd be kind of spun out just checking this stuff out.
I think it's the lighting that makes it as well, because you've got to remember the sets were lit in a very 60s way, and obviously looking at that, they've emulated the lighting. So I think they probably would look good in the flesh as well.
Yeah, totally agree. And of course, you've got to have the bridge. Now, I don't know if this bridge, as Russell said, was made for the Star Trek Continues fan film, which, funnily enough, ended up in a Mirror Darkly in Enterprise about 20 years ago, or whether this one here has been custom made for the exhibition. But I mean, that is very, very cool. I mean, everybody's going to want to sit in the captain's chair. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that they've done this. So clearly, this place has got a bit of space to play with. And I agree. It looks epic. Yeah, I totally agree. And as we've sort of discussed before, for whatever reason, whenever anybody ever looks at Star Trek from a historical perspective, it's always the original series. Like, you know, when they did the fan films and all the rest of it, it was always original series, Next Gen and beyond. It really never got touched. And it's kind of funny the legacy that show has left being so old.
No one's ever going to open a museum to Star Trek, the animated series, are they?
No, they are not. That would have at least one person turning up. That'd be the guy with the keys to open the door. I like this one. Jerry Ryan may be 7 of 9, but Dags is 1 of 1. I was thinking, mate, how's that? I should get that as a T-shirt, actually. Oh, speaking of which, I actually watched the TV. This is a complete aside. A TV series just recently. It was on SBS, not me. All right. Jerry Ryan was in it, and she was playing the bad girl, right? And she was hooking up with this dude, and they're having a big passion, and he's squeezing her bum, her ass, if you will. I was like, dude, how about that? So, Mate, that's what you call getting it. That's one way your resistance really is futile in that instance.
I'm sure I'm actually going to watch that before I download and watch your one, Dags. You shouldn't have said that. You've been bumped. You've been bumped back another viewing night kind of thing.
It's funny how you said bumped because because that's exactly what happens in that series. It's called Bosch, by the way. So there you go. Very, very cool. James Corley, that's the guy who built the set. He's very particular about his details and his stuff. Believe it or not, that guy was actually a professional Elvis impersonator at Vegas. So how good is that?
Yeah. Talking about Star Trek merchandise, we actually got just as plugging the shop. We got a small collection. It was we got a couple of weeks ago a Star Wars collection, and there was a couple of boxes of some really interesting Star Trek stuff from Cameron. And usually, I don't know if people know this, when we buy vintage collections, I like to take one piece to keep out of every collection because then that kind of gives my collection a bit of history because every piece has a story where it's coming from. And the piece that I kept from his collection, even though there was a lot of Star Wars, I kept just like Mego Spock. He had original Mego Spock in very good condition. So I added that to my collection. It's just there next to Mego Spider-Man, all out of focus. Maybe if we're in HD, people will be able to see it. But there you go.
Unbelievable. That is very, very exciting. What can I say? Anyways, that's the Star Trek thing. If you do get to go to New York, I mean, I can't imagine someone saying, yep, I'm flying out tonight because I just want to go to that exhibition. I don't know how long it's there for, but all power to them, and it's good to see that they've done it. And I reckon there'll be a lot of people sort of licking the glass at some of those collectibles thinking, my God, there's a lot of money. It's just sitting there. Very cool. Yes, which is very groovy. All right, now moving on. Now this one, as always, I usually found the odd image that pops up on around the traps, around the Facebooks and whatever else. This one I found, and I thought, I've got to have a bit of a laugh at this, right? It's a meat thing, right? It's It's for the people meat. And of course, the line is that it's quality meats made from people like you. And of course, which is highlights a Soylent Green. So what do you reckon, dude? If someone actually made a meat dish out of you, how do you reckon that'd go?
Well, the thing with that is, I don't know if you ever do the shopping, but when you go to the mince section, you have the regular mince, you have the extra lean mince, or you have the fatty mince for like sausage rolls and bologneses. I'd definitely be ground up and be the super fatty cholesterol mince, I think.
So this is a question without warning for the entire audience watching there. What would it take for you guys to be chowing down on a minced up Aaron?
I like as long as stuff smells good, I'll eat anything.
Oh, Jeepers Creepers. Absolutely love it. William said, and I agree with you, every piece of memorabilia has a story to tell. You just have to listen. Yes, that is completely true. But I just thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. It's all in the wording, right? It's made for quality meats made from people like you, right? It's the misinterpretation is really, really easy. And I thought that was actually kind of funny. So, yeah, very, very cool. Okay, now this is interesting. Russell brought this one up to me only about an hour ago. And I'll tell you what, this is going to trip you out like you wouldn't believe. And I thought, holy crap, it is completely true. So he was talking about the Flash Gordon original serial from 1936. Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. Actually, there might be the wrong poster, but it's Flash Gordon, the serial, right? 1936. And you go, all right, fair enough. You know, back in the days, it was black and white. Excuse me. Sound had only been invented like 10 years prior. We're talking a long, long, long time ago. In a few years' time, it's 100 years ago, right? And of course, wrong button, sorry. And of course, they had the remake movie in 1980, right, which we all love and adore. And of course, the time frame between those two shows was 44 years, right? Now, you look at how filmmaking changed in that period, right? The color, the sound. The original, the Flash Gordon movie is a like quantum leap ahead of the serial. But as it turned out, as Russell pointed out to me today, this year is 2024, and it's now 44 years since the 1980 movie. Dude, how friggin' trippy is that?
It freaks me out a lot. It happens with me with Doctor Who, where when I was growing up, the 60s Doctor Who was sort of 15 years ago, and it was black and white, and it seemed like ancient. You might as well have been made during World War One. And then the modern Doctor Who, for me, is from about 1980 onwards, where I started watching it. And that's now 40 years ago, when 60s Doctor Who, when I thought it was old, was only 15 years old. It is one of those things. You know, you look at Back to the Future, and we're we're so far into the future. Going back
Mm.
to the original Back to the Future is like going to the past in the 80s, not the 50s.
Look, it's a fair point. And what I thought was interesting regarding the Flash Gordon scenario, as I said, from 36 to 80 is like filmmaking changed dramatically in that time. But between 80 and now, aside from
Mm,
the advent of CGI and maybe better quality sound, really not much has changed. I mean, you could look at the Flash Gordon movie today and look at another movie made today. And look at a film made today, and you go, well, okay, they're not too dissimilar for the most part. So you got one
yeah,
version where a lot of technology changed, and another version where it didn't change much at all. But yeah, when Russell pointed that out to me, I go, friggin' hell. And of course, in 1980, 44 years ago, would have seemed like, like 3 or 4 generations back. Whereas for us, 1980 was like
yeah,
only like 5 or 6 weeks ago. So how
yeah.
bizarre is
It is
that?
crazy. Yeah, it does freak me out every time I think about that.
Yeah. So, and I didn't realize it until he mentioned it. And I thought, mate, that is just absolutely unbelievable. So, there you go, fans. I mean, I don't know. So, very, very cool. What do you reckon about that, Mr. Aaron? Is all very exciting stuff?
It just makes me feel old. But you're
You know what?
older, ha!
I know. Yet somehow or other, I get the feeling I probably look my age a bit better, or look younger than what I really am, or something. I don't know. We're just crapping on. Speaking of crapping on, now we're going to talk about a movie that most people probably haven't seen. Oh shit! Hang on,
Mhm.
I've got the wrong button. Right, here we go. Let's go backwards, shall we? Ah, dear. That most people probably haven't seen. Megalopolis. Now we've been talking about this for months, right? Remember the story? It came out in Cannes back in May, and the distributors didn't know what to do with it. And as it turned out, and we mentioned a week or two ago that it was actually getting a release. And as it turned out, it has. It's actually in cinemas right now. Now I
Yeah.
suspect most people who are watching us at the moment are not going to see it. And I know you didn't see it, even though you were sort of planning to. But I guess we've got 15 minutes. We can have a bit of a brief chat about it anyway. Mr. Aaron, do you want to ask me what I thought of Megalopolis?
Well, I thought we were reviewing Legopolis, which is a Doctor Who story, so I watched that 3 or 4 times, so I'm quite disappointed. What did you think of Megaflopolis?
I tell you what, you know how they originally said that they didn't know how to describe the film? That is
Yep.
actually very accurate. It is not mainstream by any stretch. It's almost like there are stories within the story. So if you try and look, if you're looking at a normal narrative, it doesn't happen, right? That's the reason why a lot of people got confused. But the overall feeling was very adamant about saying about how large cities and the people who control them effectively all corrupt themselves, trying to get more and more power. And it reminded me of the Murdoch situation over in America at the moment, where the kids are all fighting amongst each other, trying to get hold of the dad's empire. It's almost exactly the same thing. So you've got the two classes of people, all the rich people live in this, I think it's hedonistic society, where it's all just parties and games and all this sort of thing. And then you've got the poor people as well. But the underlying story between it all, aside from this power struggle, is to do with different classes of people trying to rebuild the city in a certain way. And Adam Driver's character, he's invented this new product called Megalon, and it's like an organic material that allows cities to be built differently, if you will. But there's an underlying message about how the power corrupts wealthy people and how they can never get enough of it, so to speak. So it's going to be hard for me to explain because it was actually quite difficult to sort of comprehend. But yes, New Rome. So that's what. So it's an alternative reality, and New York City is actually known as New Rome. So they emulate a lot of the old traditional Roman concepts. Yeah.
Yeah.
This picture, this was in the movie, and of course I saw this today. And what the hell does that remind you of? All the shit that's going on over in the Middle East at the moment. I thought, freaking hell, talk about life imitating art, or is it art imitating life? Unbelievable.
It is crazy, isn't it? We're all about to go up in nuclear war, but here we are talking about Megalopolis.
Well, that's exactly right. And to be frankly honest, it won't be a film that appeals to a lot of people. I think it's limited release. It will be very limited. As it is, I saw it in the cinema Europa at Knox. That's not even a mainstream thing. There were no posters even, like anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even being promoted. And I can see why a lot of people were very confused about it. I didn't get a chance to really delve deep into the themes behind it all. But it was intriguing about how all the power struggles work between the various people in charge. And it's actually emulates a lot of real life because people in power want to keep that power and at least want to expand on it. And if they can't, if you're trying to worm your way up from the bottom, all you want to
Mm.
do is find out who can you corrupt so you can then get this extra authority. And of course, it's all, as I mentioned earlier, all family squabbles amongst themselves. I don't think anybody who's watching tonight has actually seen Megalopolis.
Well,
But
so few. It's got so few screenings. I couldn't even get a chance to go see it. Was it in IMAX for three screenings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I just couldn't make it happen. If you were to describe it in it's like another movie, is it something maybe you can do? Is it like maybe Sky Atlas or something like that? Or
no, but it is visually really well done. There's a lot of
yeah.
really good visual elements to it. The photography is outstanding. Clearly, they've really pushed the visual effects side. You can tell because Francis Ford Coppola financed it himself. So the end credits in most movies now go for 100 miles. These are actually relatively short, which I thought was really, really interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where you got presented with the information, but you're not necessarily told what goes on beyond that, and it sort of jumps around a little bit. So you really got to put two and two together. You got to be really focused on it all. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if I'd necessarily see it again, but I'm glad I did see it because we have been discussing it for a while, and you can clearly see it is an auteur's work. So it's like the really artistic level is ramped up. So you can see the person who made this knows what they're doing regarding filmmaking. It's not just a Hollywood color by numbers cookie cutter. Definitely not that, but it will divide the audience. There will be some people who like seeing mainstream movies. Will walk out halfway through. They just go, nah, it's just not registering as to what's going on. It's almost got that David Lynch kind of feel about it to a large degree, where it just doesn't follow a normal path, even though deep down the story is actually quite interesting, if that makes sense.
Is it? Yeah. Is it? Do you feel it's a pretentious movie, as in the way that it's been made? No.
No, but it's definitely got a message associated with it, talking about how cities, especially even like Melbourne and big cities in the world, how they are self-destructive because of the way that the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, and very few people in the power of the rich want to look after the poor. So if anything, you say, and this is actually funny enough happening in real life, because in Carlton, for example, we got the Housing Commission units. They've been in recent years been taking the Housing Commission people out. I don't know where they're going, and of course they're up renovating the buildings and then reselling them back to rich people. Yeah,
they're going into that meat product you were showing earlier.
Maybe they are. So so don't say you want a bit of an Italian sausage, because that can be interpreted many different ways. And that I think is actually quite significant, because in Megalopolis they're destroying old buildings to build the new city, as it were. And there's a lot of arguments and issues regarding that. There's actually Adam Driver's character is part of the design agency, I think it is, and that's their thing, to do all the buildings around the city. And of course, you knock down the old stuff to build new stuff, which is, of course, primarily for the rich people. So that was actually quite interesting. And of course, once you get one person, and this does have the slight Donald Trump feel about it, where you get one person who says he's part of the family, says, I'm going to try and recruit all of the commoners, for want of a better term. They're more likely to engage in riots and like make changes to the city. But of course, the moment those people don't get what they want, it all turns around on them. So, yes, it's interesting stuff.
The peasants are revolting.
Pretty much. Those who love costuming will go completely batshit over it. The costumes are really, really spectacular. The representation of ancient Rome, it's almost like Rome never fell and it just continued on for thousands of years to what we have now. They emulate Rome a lot. And you can almost see it happening in reality, where you get people who get so wealthy that they have to do weird things just to keep themselves entertained. And it really does echo that a lot. And I can see that happening in real life, especially when you get wealthy people on the big fancy yachts or hanging out at the casinos in Monaco, and they're just divorced from the reality of the rest of the population, as it were. And that's what I sort of took from it. So, yeah, but as I said, each their own. If people want to see it, fine. Just be wary of what you're getting yourself into, and don't be surprised if you come out halfway through going, "Yeah, I'm completely losing it." But you've got to respect the work that's been put into it. So, yeah.
Did you find it too long?
No, almost. It's 2 hours, just over 2 hours. There's been talk of people saying you probably could shorten it a little bit, because unlike a normal narrative, say, using an MCU movie, for example, right? Okay, the bad guy comes on the scene, the good guys turn up, the good guys get beaten, but then they come back at the end and they win the day. Done. You can almost plot it out from the beginning, right? With this, you actually have no idea where it's going to finish. It's just like you're rolling along, go, all right, I have no idea where we're going. And it's only when you get to a certain point, you go, all right, I think we're heading towards the end now, because it doesn't follow a normal pattern, which, if you like something different, is definitely worth its weight. So, yeah, very, very cool. Colin said the first trailer looked like very Matrix in nature. Yeah, I guess, because it has the time shift thing, because we showed some footage a while ago where Adam steps off the cliff, off the building, and he freezes time. That is in the film. I'm not entirely sure if this is meant to represent that he actually can literally freeze time, even though the last shot would make you assume that he can, or whether it's in his mind, because there's a lot of drugs, obviously, and a lot of hallucinogens and things like that going on. So, but it ultimately comes down to he wants to build this entire planet, or this entire world, this entire city, but he doesn't have the time to do it. And that's why he comes across this megalon thing, which allows things to be built much faster. And that's where the science fiction element comes from. So,
does it end?
Oh my goodness.
Does it end with the DeLorean getting struck by lightning and him going back to live in the
Well,
old
there is
West?
lightning in it. No, but there is actually lightning in it. It's a bit of an all-star cast. I mean, John Voight's in it. I can't. Giancarlo Esposito. He's one of the main guys in it. Of course, Adam Driver's in it as well. And even Talia Shire from the Rocky movies is in it. It's like, bloody hell. So it's a bit of an all-star. And Dustin Hoffman. That's like a nearly shit, dude. I haven't seen him in the movies for years. So it's I think Francis has pulled out all these people from absolutely everywhere, and
there's also there's that woman that's named after the shop on the border, Aubrey Plaza.
Yes, you're a freaking idiot. I like this one. Yeah, Godzilla versus Megalon. Yeah, exactly right. So, I'm glad I saw it. Okay, as I said, I probably won't see it again, and I'd be curious to see if other people see it, what they think of it as well. But yeah, the critics, as I said, they're a bit confused. And that's why when the film was getting released, they didn't know what to call it. It's like, it's not action, adventure, drama, science fiction. What is it? And to a large degree, it doesn't fit into any of those categories. Sure, it's got the science fiction element, but it's a bit of a head scratcher. So I'd be curious, if you ever get around to seeing it, I'd be curious to see what you think.
Streaming soon on SBS by demand.
Maybe. Look, if it's going to end up anywhere, it will be SBS. Absolutely. So, yeah, it's interesting stuff. But that's Megalopolis, big ass cities. It's very, very cool, mate. I can't even say, unlike Batman and Me, where I said be sure to check it out. Megalopolis, make of that what you will. So, because I don't want people to say, well, Dag said it was worth looking at, and I watched it and it was bloody rubbish. And now they're not going to listen to me anymore, which wouldn't be the first time.
Would you say it is a movie worth seeing in the cinema if you're going to see it?
Yeah, I think that would help. Yeah, but don't lose any sleep if you don't. Okay, so I mean, I was looking everywhere. I was looking for all the details, and I thought, no, you really got to focus on the story because it does get a little bit convoluted. So, but the background imagery is actually very, very groovy. So, all good fun. There you go, Mr. Aaron. That's Megalopolis. We've actually, since we've been doing this show, followed its entire journey from being announced, right, appearing at Cannes, getting trailers, the first shots coming out, blah, 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 and now it's actually been released. Mate, how good is that?
And when it appears in the bargain bins at JB Hi-Fi, we'll be there for that too.
And I'll tell you what, I'd be surprised if they do a DVD or a Blu-ray release of it. If they did it, the extra features would be really fascinating to see. So, but yes,
Sorry, I was going to say, I could see them releasing an extended cut, actually.
I don't know. I think it's going to play with people's brains enough as it is. So that was a mega review. Well, I kind of had to cover it off, but yes, it does emulate real life quite closely, which is kind of freaky. So there you go. One thing, Megalopolis or Megalopolis doesn't have the 15th origin of Batman, Spider-Man, etc. No, it does not. It is funny seeing Adam Driver again because he's popping up everywhere, right? And I'm looking at Kylo Ren, and I go, 10 years ago, you got introduced as Kylo Ren, and now you're doing all these different things. The lad's certainly gone places. And Shia LaBeouf, I didn't even recognize him when he first turned up. And I go, oh, he's playing a very different character. So if you see him in Transformers, he is nothing like that. So, very, very groovy.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I have nothing to say. I didn't see it. The end of Legopolis has one of the better regenerations from Doctor Who.
Friggin' absolute idiot. Anyway, that's my review. I wanted to get that out of the way. I was hoping it would be a two-person chat, but it's not. But that's okay. It is all good fun. That's my 15 minutes of fame. Guess what, fans? That's the end of that. So people have been tuning out for the past quarter of an hour can come back. Because guess what, fans? It is now time for this.
A question.
Hold it right there, because I've got a question for you. Usually, the most happening place on a Saturday is Aaron's Collectibles, but this Saturday, something was happening out on the footpath. You were meeting up in a secret meeting with Sonny and Dicko. So, what was going on there before we move on?
It was Koran, by the way, because nobody on the show is going to know who you're talking about. Oh,
Ah,
no,
yes,
it's just because I had Saturday off, obviously in the store, decided to come on down, caught up with Koran, caught up with Dicko. We're talking nerd stuff outside for a couple of hours before I went home to watch the grand final. Mate, all very good, very, very exciting. But if you were thinking we were plotting our big takeover of Aaron's Collectibles,
yes.
you can be rest assured that was definitely not the case. So
All I
very, very
heard
cool.
was a lot of laughing. It sounded like you were talking about me.
When we talk about you, dude, laughter is not the first thing that comes to mind. So it is all good fun. Anyway, guess what? Hang on. Karan said we talked about life. Great chat. We talked Star Wars. Well, believe it or not, guess what? We're going to talk about Star Wars again. Can you believe it? So we've got Star Wars for the rest of the show, which is kind of groovy. And so the question I've got for you all, and this is another one that's been submitted by Russell. Okay, so Russell's just popping out these questions without warning on a regular basis. So let me see what you think of this. I reckon most people already know what the answer is. Okay. Would Star Wars have been better off adapting the original expanded universe to film and TV over what we got with the Disney material, effectively?
Well, it's one of those interesting things. You can't be a fan of any pop culture unless you're complaining about it. No
No.
matter what they did, um, when they continued the Star Wars universe, I think, a third of people would have complained about it. If you go back to when they announced Disney was taking over, people were generally pretty pleased. When they announced they were going to get the original cast back, people were really excited and they were like, I hope we get more than cameos, because no one really expected the cast to come back and be main characters in a trilogy, 30 years later. And when they came back and they released The Force Awakens, you go back to a time when I would say 90% of people really loved it. There were 10% of people who said, well, it was too much like Star Wars. They had the same story beats over and over. So you could go in an original direction and have good movies, but that's as far as it went with Disney when it ran out of steam and started to hit all these other issues with storylines and plot and diversity issues and things like that. I think one of the things that fans like is familiarity. If you change something too much from the original concept, people don't like it anymore. The great thing about doing adaptations of the books is you already know what the story is going to be, and lots of people are already familiar with the characters, the backstories, and that's actually something that really adds to Star Wars. If you take something like The Lord of the Rings, it isn't a bad movie because of all the extra stuff in the books. It's something that people can look, and it's a really great movie. And then if they really like it, they can go and read the books, and you get so much more out of them. And that's one of the benefits I would have seen to if they'd done the expanded universe, the Del Rey stuff or the new stuff. Because fans would have anticipated seeing the things they'd seen in their heads when reading the books. So they'd already have an anticipation of stuff that was going to be in them. But books are never really, the movies are never really as great as the books. So if you don't like the movie, you can go back and watch the book, read the book and say the book's better. The great thing about the the expanded universe with books, it's not like 2 or 3 novels, it's hundreds. And you can see with what they've done in Disney now, they pick and choose. You could have gone back and taken any of the great trilogies or any of the great novels that were already tried and true because fans already like them, and you could do fan pleasers. One of the things I did talk about in the shop was if they wanted to get Disney back on track, they could announce that they're going to do Disney series based on, the popular fiction, bring back Mara Jade, do Crimson Empire because everyone wants to see, the Royal Guards fighting and things like that. And instantly you've got people who go, I'm never watching Star Wars again because Disney go, but I really liked that book when I was growing up. Imagine if they did a Twilight Zone-like series or an anthology series, The Tales of Jabba's Palace or The Tales from the Empire or The Tales of the Bounty Hunter. You don't have to have an umbrella arc storyline. You can actually pick and choose the stuff that people are going to like. So I kind of see the benefits of both. when they announced Star Wars, I was pretty happy they weren't going to do the expanded universe books. With some hindsight, I think it might have been a good idea, and there's definitely room for them in the mix at the moment, that's for sure.
A good response here is from Guy. Interesting. This will always be a great platform for speculation. That is very true. Continued on here from Kelvin. They junked the EU, which was the Lucasfilm Story Group in 2013, then cannibalized it and stole stuff, which is very, very true. And they're still continuing to do that. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I remember when it all occurred, I was actually editing a Star Wars newsletter at the time when the news came through. And it was interesting listening to the arguments on both camps. And obviously the supporters of the expanded universe had been following it for 20 something years, spent a lot of money on the books, the comics, and whatever else. And for the most part, the stories all followed a bit of a linear timeline. So all the books all related to each other. It was one big gigantic story. So you can understand why everybody assumed that the new sequel trilogy would follow those particular stories. But I also read about people who said they wouldn't have worked being transitioned to film because the story was actually very big and convoluted. And of course, the irony being that it's set decades after Return of the Jedi, yet Luke, Leia, and Han were effectively, they hadn't aged. They were still pretty much the same. And it was like every day it was just a saga. Every day it was just like dramas. And of course, Chewbacca carked it at one point. So even if they had done it, Chewie would have had to have been kicked off. But some people said, it was a very long, cumbersome, difficult story, and translating it to film may not have worked. It is interesting because I knew the moment that the Lucasfilm Story Group ditched the expanded universe, they already pushed all those people who love the expanded universe offside, and they hadn't even made anything yet, Disney in this case. So you've already pissed off legions of fans, whereas those who didn't follow the expanded universe wouldn't have cared either way. So whether it would have made a better story or not, who knows? I mean, had they introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn in The Force Awakens and then killed him in what was the third one, Rise of Skywalker or whatever, that may have actually worked. It's hard to say, but I agree with what Guy said. It's an interesting discussion to have. But whether you can say the stories that we got, knowing fully well that they didn't really write all three movies together, they sort of made them up as they went along. That was definitely their Achilles heel. And there's an argument to be said that maybe the expanded universe would have actually worked better. I don't know, but yeah.
What you could have done with the expanded universe is use the general stories as the backbone, so you know where the actual stories have to go, and then made up original stories within the existing sort of narrative. And that way writers aren't like scratching their heads because they don't know which way they're going, which one of the interesting things that I really love is when they made the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, they sat down at the start of it and they said, okay, this is where Indy was born, and this is what he did in his childhood, and this is where he went for the war, and this is where he traveled around the world, and this is who he met, and this is what he did. Now, the writers can do anything, but it can't contradict the Bible because that means we can do stuff in different generations and it all works. And that's really, I think, what they needed to do with the Star Wars when Disney got it. They needed to sit down and go, what are we going to do? Are we going to have the expanded universe? Are we going to ditch everything? If we ditch everything, we need to sit down and plot it all out, because the writers obviously need a Bible, what they can sort of put their section of Star Wars in. Is Andor really going to, gel in the same universe as the Skeleton Crew and stuff like that? At the moment, Disney seems to be doing scattershot stuff, and a lot of it seems to be course correction as well, where we're not going to use the expanded universe, except we're going to use Thrawn because everyone loves him, kind of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if the ratings go down or they can't get the subscriptions if Mara Jade appears and things like that. But I really do think organization is one of the keys to, having a fleshed out universe that all works together like cogs in the same machine.
Well, it's a good point, because I need you to move a little bit to your right or move the camera to the left or something.
Sorry.
If you wouldn't mind. Thanks.
I ran to the right.
To the right. It's a very, very good. It's a very, very good point. I think had Force Awakens been absolutely spectacular, in some people's eyes it is, in some people's eyes it isn't, maybe that would have changed everything. But you had a lot of people on the back foot to begin with, and they were very anti-Disney from 2013 to 2015. So it's almost want to play it safe and go, you know what? How about we just make something for the expanded universe fans just to appease the natives, because it was a lot of natives. And you are right. I mean, So they ditched the expanded universe, and then it's like, well, what have we got now? And of course, they started off with Rebels, which was set prior to A New Hope. And you go, well, that's got nothing to do with the expanded universe anyway. So it was a risky move. I think there'll be endless discussions as to whether it would have been a good idea or a bad idea. Spankin has joined us and said he wanted to make Shadows of the Empire, which is set between, oh shit, was it A New Hope and Empire? Or was it Empire and Jedi?
Empire and Jedi. Yeah.
Empire and Jedi, that's right. With, funnily enough, it actually featured Prince Shizor, and he hasn't actually been canonized yet. His race has been, and his crime group have been, but not him personally. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know, but the damage is done, right? And unless if somebody in Lucasfilm said, you know what, hang on, I'll get to you in a sec. If somebody in Lucasfilm said, hey, how about let's make a TV series or a series of movies or something following the expanded universe storyline, maybe that's a compromise. Maybe they'll get some fans back. Sorry, dude.
You say the damage is done, but I remember the kickback against episode 1 probably being more than the kickback against the Disney stuff. The trouble is, episode 1, I think people agree the films got better as they went along in the prequels, whereas the Disney stuff, it probably started at the one people liked and it has slowly gone down in people's esteems. So that's where they need to be careful. I think they really stop making stuff, take a step back, write a Bible and say, this is what we've got planned for the next decade, and stick to it.
Totally agree. Spankin also asked, is it because Star Wars universe is so large? Would that have been the problem? No, I think they made a conscious decision. It would have been a hard one to make too. I can imagine there were like 5 people in the Lucasfilm story group, and they're stuck as like, what do you do? What do you do? We're going to be making new movies. The Disney now own the rights. All this material has been produced, which was never going to be made into films in the first place. What do you do? And someone had to say, well, let's just like wipe it off. And since then, I don't think the expanded universe stories have continued on. They've just stopped within their tracks. So yeah.
The other thing you've got to remember as well, Disney bought Lucasfilm and got everything that Lucasfilm owned, but a lot of this expanded universe was not in part of that deal. They could use the characters and stuff, but they still have to pay the original authors more. And Disney, having paid $5 billion or whatever it was, actually said, we're not going to pay any more to use other characters that we don't own. So that's another reason they didn't go with any of the older stuff to begin with.
Interesting. I mean, because the irony is, and people who followed the expanded universe, like to them, it was like almost like their own religion. They believed it was all canonized. And we even said 20 years ago in our Star Wars meetings, it's the interpretation of all these writers. It is not actually canon, and it can be wiped out at any day. And ironically, who found out, in 2013, that's exactly what happened. So, mate, talk about prophesizing the future. So, unbelievable. So, yes, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know, but it is what it is, and we're stuck with what we got. So Rey, Finn, and Poe, they are still the heroes of the place. If you were going to do the expanded universe stories, you'd have to do it all digital animation anyway, because all the actors aren't really around anymore, the original actors.
Or they could recast. It worked in James Bond. I mean, the first time they do it, everyone will have a meltdown, but once people get used to it, it's one of those things where Star Wars has become something that is bigger than the original movies now. It spreads out in all different directions. I would actually probably prefer they cast a good actor than get a body double and CGI an old actor, because everyone instantly goes, oh, it's nice that they're back, but it looks crap.
Yeah, you are right. People would have to go completely burko, saying, oh my God, it's a brand new Princess Leia. What's the deal? And another dude, and get the kid who played Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan and get him to play Luke. He's a bit too young at the moment. So, fascinating stuff. Now, with that in mind, you remember last week we actually said to you that copies or videos of our questions without warning are now available on YouTube. So the one that popped up this week was the one about, is there any life left in from the Transformer movies? I don't know if you even remember doing these, dude. These were months ago, but they're now standalone videos that are now available on YouTube. So if you want to go and check them out, fans, you can, which is kind of groovy, under the Question Without Warning playlist. What do you reckon, dude?
And also remember to like, share, and comment, because it helps with the algorithms and more people see them if you do that. And who wouldn't want to see more of me and Dags?
Mate, what can I say? And they're a bit more slightly edited versions of these segments instead of us just rambling on for the entire time. It is all good. It's all fun. What? What?
The thing we should mention here is a congratulations for Dags. One of the
Oh,
documentaries he
yeah.
put together has just passed 100,000 views.
I completely forgot all about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did too. Completely forgot. Yeah, a couple of days ago. Yeah, 100,000 views. Yoo-hoo, party, party, party. So that was the history on American Sci-Fi TV shows. So, yes, thank you very much for that. I did actually forget. I was going to mention it, and I did forget. All right, sticking with this is mostly Star Wars once again. I thought this was kind of interesting because I saw an ad come up a week or two ago saying that we're talking about fan edits of films, and the Blade Runner is getting what they call the White Dragon cut. Right, I have absolutely no idea what that is. Right, but it seems. Oh, hang on, I've stuffed up a picture a bit, but there's actually a trailer for it and everything. And there's been a bit of a thing going on for the past 20 years of fans recutting actual movies. And of course, it all started, for those with really good memories, if I can find the damn thing, yes, with The Phantom Edit, right? Which was a movie at
Yes.
the time that I think it was a professional editor got it, chopped it up and changed The Phantom Menace. And only certain people could actually get hold of this thing in the first place because, back then the internet was still relatively new and there was no YouTube or anything like that. And I read about what changes were made for the film, and most people actually said it was done professionally. It actually came out quite good. Now, did you ever get to see the Phantom Edit? Because I saw a version, but I didn't see the proper version.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan of fan edits. People might not remember if I guess a lot of our viewers are our age. Before the internet, they were giving this stuff out. They would say, "Today we're going to be in Times Square, and we will hand it out on disc to people." That's how crazy it was because there were no torrents and no fast downloads. The Phantom Edit, I remember being quite good because it got rid of most of Jar Jar where they didn't need him. It got rid of a lot of the droids being total idiots. And it also changed a lot of the alien alien performances into aliens. So the Nemodians actually had subtitles and spoke in an alien language, which instantly made the movie seem a bit more adult because it was a bit more serious. And there were things like where the battle droid says to Qui-Gon, "Where's your identification?" In this one, they cut out all of that, and Qui-Gon just goes out and you just get straight to the action. So it trims a lot of the stuff that was maybe put in to be a little bit funny or maybe to lighten the movie, but it's a much sleeker version of the movie.
Yeah, what I'd heard about Jar Jar, because I'd seen a version of it, but I don't think I saw the version. As you said, they cut out all of his silly antics, and they also changed his voice as well. So the squeeze me and all that sort of stuff
Yeah,
was
that
a
was
foreign
all.
language. And a lot of
Yeah.
people said it actually worked quite well. And there was a number of other changes made as well to try and just shorten it all down. Now, a lot of people are going to be asking, is the Phantom Edit around anymore? Bearing in mind, it was made over 20 something years ago. It must have been a DVD source or something like that. But I don't really know, to be frankly honest with you. But it was the one that was doing the rounds for quite a while.
I have got it burnt on a disc somewhere I could probably find. I'm sure it must be there. It came out pretty soon after the DVD was first released, so it is quite a high quality. I don't know what we're talking about uh, for the rest of this segment, but are we going to talk about A Last Hope, the one that Topher Grace edited together of the first three movies?
No, I didn't know about that one. No.
That
Oh, really?
was
Oh,
that was one.
there you go.
Sorry, but that was one of the better ones where they basically edited all of
Yes.
episode one out and they went into episode two and three into one sort of big 3 hour
Yes.
movie. And that works very, very well.
Yeah, I did hear about that. As soon as you mentioned it, I go, yes, and you are right. Getting rid of Phantom Menace makes a lot of sense. I think the dude came back for the second film, Attack of the Phantom. It's easy to work out what got removed. Some of I think the droid factory got chopped out, but other than that, I don't really know what they did differently for this because with Attack of the Clones, did you see this at all or know anything about it?
I did, and I don't remember that one being particularly good. I think it just tightened up the movie. I don't remember the structure being changed around or anything like that.
In recent times, now actually, this one did do the rounds, and this is only a couple of years ago. The Obi-Wan series, someone got hold of all that, and of course, we did an episode by episode review of this on
Yeah.
our DNA reviews, and there was stuff in there that we thought, yeah, this is just really superfluous. It really doesn't serve any purpose at all. and someone's already gone in and chopped out a massive amount of it. And it only goes for like 2.5 hours. It's a movie made out of the series, and from what I've heard, the reports of this have been very, very positive.
Well, this is the version we have on the hard drive at work and what we play at the shop, and it's a much better version than the TV version. Interestingly, this came out and kind of caused some waves, and I think Disney came out and said they were going to re-edit Obi-Wan into a movie themselves and release it, but it never ever happened.
So I guess the key thing is that people who do fan edits, they've got to do them properly. They've got to do them well, and they've got to make them really professional. And it's not just up to some random dude to say, oh, "I'll just cut up the shots and stick it in,
Yeah.
and we're good to go." It's got to look like a professional mix. And so the ones that you've seen, you think they've cut together like really, really well and been done properly?
They have the ones. Look, I usually download them, and I only really download the ones that make a big enough impact that people go, "Oh, you should see that. It's pretty good." I can't look. I've seen some fan edits where I'm not of Star Wars, but other stuff where I'm like, well, I don't know if you needed that or not. There's a massive fan edit of Waterworld that's great, but then there's other fan edits that aren't needed at all. When you say Blade Runner, I mean, there's so many official versions of that movie. Do we really need a fan edit of it?
Yeah, I don't know what they would have done. I can imagine the one with Waterworld. It's the opening credits and the end credits, and that's it. Why would you even do that for Waterworld? It's like, what the hell, man? Seriously. So,
Because Waterworld was actually about an hour longer, and it was actually a
yeah.
much better movie, and someone got all the unused footage and edited it together into a different movie. It's an interesting watch. I wouldn't really recommend it, but yeah.
Yeah, because obviously trailers are a bit of a thing now. It's like fan trailers have been around since, funny enough, Attack of the Clones, and people producing their own trailers using the footage from movies or other movies and sticking them together. And that's now a very, very common thing. And some of them actually look like the real thing. But to get the actual film and to then restructure it and re-stick it together, I mean, the Obi-Wan one would have been interesting because that's a series. That was like a 7-hour show, and they've chopped it down to 2.5 hours. So the first thing you're going to be asking yourself is, well, what got the flick? And there's a good chance that what got the flick deserved to get the flick. So I haven't actually watched it myself. It's on my list of things to do. But you'd like to think that if done properly, you'd be asking yourself, why didn't they just do this as a movie in the first place rather than as a series that just had all this extra material that ultimately wasn't necessarily?
Well, the other fan edits, which aren't really edits, but you've got to be impressed by, are people who really want to restore the original movie so people can see the original cuts. And that seems harder to do than the fan edits, because the fan edits, you've got stuff to work with. But these people track down prints from all over the world and try and get them so they've got a pristine DVD or Blu-ray quality copy of the stuff that Lucasfilm won't give us.
Yeah, that's called the despecialized edition. And just quickly, Reva got the boot from the Obi-Wan movie, which I completely understand. So the despecialized edition, because there was no Blu-ray high def version of the original movies, and they are available to download around the place. And they look, I mean, that's the version I would watch given the opportunity on HD. Just the original movies. Even with Star Wars, there's no A New Hope. It's just straight up the original title. But the one version of the films that's been getting a bit of workaround are the revisited versions. And this started when this particular dude said, oh, it must be like over 10 something years, or maybe 15, 20 years ago now, wanted to fix up all the continuity errors in the movie. So, get oil stains changing sides and, laser blast pointing in the wrong direction and whatever else. And this dude, I don't know who this person is. I think he goes under the name of Adiwan, did a whole lot of visual effects work on the first movie. And I got to say, it was very spectacular. It was very, very cool. Well done. Awesome. And still until he started changing things. So, for example, he added the music of Duel of the Fates when Obi-Wan and Vader are doing the saber duel, and go, that doesn't really, really work. Or adding things like when the TIE fighters all come in from the to attack the X-Wings of the Death Star, there's millions of the damn things, and he's added those in. So some changes you can kind of say, you shouldn't have done that. And since that, he's done Empire, Jedi, and he's had to go back to A New Hope to do HD versions, and there's still more changes coming into play. It's very impressive from a visual effects perspective. Some of it is unbelievably anal, but
some of the stuff,
what do you think of those two?
Well, probably talking about what you're talking about, the Battle of Hoth, where you see the snowtroopers actually descending out of the AT-ATs.
Okay.
It's stuff like that where you really didn't need to put it in, but he does. So there's some incredibly, intricate stuff and cutting it around and things like that. Look, fan edits are good because you've got the originals and then you can watch these ones. A lot of fan edits I never watch more than once, though, because once you've seen it, you've seen what they've done. I've never seen a fan edit that really supersedes the original cut where I'd never watch the original cut again.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you. And I found that with the revisited thing, the one thing, as soon as you see some changes come into play, there's one thing's about fixing mistakes, but when you add things in, you go, all right, now we're heading into iffy territory. And of course, one of the things that the guy did at the start of A New Hope, when you did the tilt down, you said the two moons, he put the two suns in the background, right? And I straight away said, no, you can't do that, because then that ruins the moment when Luke first sees the suns on Tatooine. He's having his melancholy moment. That's ruined now, because we now know that there are two suns on the planet. I said, no, that's a change I don't agree with. So so automatically I was like, nah, red flags everywhere. But to the guy's credit, from a visual effects perspective, I mean, yeah, some of it's really, really impressive. And it's like, oh, dude, that's just mind-blowing. But anyway, they're called Revisited, A New Hope, Empire and Jedi, and have been multiple versions, depending if you want the original HD version, 4K version, and whatever else, which is kind of insane. Yeah, it's very, very cool. What do you reckon, dude? But I agree with you. I mean, so going back to, if anybody wants to look at fan edits of the movies, I'd go with the despecialized edition. Okay, they're the original movies, right? Without any of the special edition changes from the 90s. They're the ones I would definitely go with any day of the week. What do you reckon, dude?
So what I love most about fan edits isn't actually the fan edits themselves, and it's something that's always been around in fandom. What I love in fan edits is it actually inspires fans to be creative and do their own thing and take a piece of film and, use their own creativity on it. And that's what I've admired about you to some extent, but people like Dave Hankin and Russell, who film fan movies, and that's sort of a spring off of fan edits, because you see these things and you think, well, I could do that, or they should do that this way, or they should do that way. And it's one of those things a lot of professionals have started by doing fan edits. You've got just recently, you had the introduction to one of the conventions in Melbourne, which edited Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars and all this together. They're the very early fan edit stuff and people being creative with the material that's out there. But you've had people who've crossed over from being fans who edit these things into professionals. There was a particularly interesting story only a year or two ago where some people weren't happy with the CGI where they recreated Luke and Tarkin, and so they did it and said, look, this is how we would do it better. And Lucasfilm said, that's great, you're hired. So
yeah, that was from the Mandalorian. Yeah, the deep faking guys. Yeah. Two things before we wrap up. Russell said he's a fan edit with a difference. Legendary comic artist Al Williamson, who was a big Flash Gordon fan, and got the job of doing the 1980 movie spin-off comic, but he didn't like the campy script, and he did his own comic version as a straight Flash Gordon story, like the original Alex Raymond strip, which is very, very cool. And just quickly, we're talking about that video that I made, 100,000 views. For those who don't know what it looks like, that's what it looks like. So if you're looking for it on YouTube, that's what you need to check out, which is very cool. I have been asked here. What?
Here's one he made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier. Have there been any I just need a quick answer. This one. Any Doctor Who fan edits?
I have seen some, but nothing really serious. Yeah.
No, very, very cool. Anyway, they're all out there. So yes, be sure to check them out if that is your cup of tea. Wherever at. Go on, what?
I'll add one in there for Russell. If you get on YouTube and look for New Opening to Remembrance of the Daleks, which is a very cool spin on the opening of that story.
Very, very cool. Now, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the Sci-Fi Zone socials and blah, 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 YouTubes and Instagrams and whatever else. Of course, your store, which is very exciting. Good. Apparently, outside the store is where the action is, according to Quran. People getting around, having cups of coffee and whatever else and chatting about you. How good is that with a few laughs chucked in, Mr. Aaron?
It was dead on Saturday. I don't think it was because of the grand finals. I think it was the street party with Dags happening outside, which was intercepting people coming in. We've had a Doctor Who collection this week. We've had new comics, new Star Wars, new Star Trek, redone the Star Trek cabinet because I thought Colin was going to pay a visit, and he called and had a little tiny chat, but it was all too busy. So yes, anyone who wants to come in, we've got a lot of stock in this week.
Absolutely fantastic. And with that in mind, we're going to depart for the week. I've had my Megalopolis fix. I probably won't have to talk about it now for at least until next week, which is very, very exciting stuff. Mr. Aaron, we're going to be partying hard, rocking on in the store on Saturday. Yay, team. Is that right?
What a big weekend we've got coming up.
Mate, I tell you what, it's going to be cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. I mean, nerds of the world unite. Anyway, fans, we're going to buzz off, leave you to a party, hard rock on, and we will see you all next Thursday. Okay, take care. See you later.
Have a good night.